everyone. Hope you're well. I'm just going to wait for a moment to make sure that the camera's working. We've got the audio going. Had a couple of technical issues with the last one because this is take 2. So, hi again. Welcome. If you're watching, thank you for joining. This is week 6 of our lives discussing learning at home. So firstly, everyone, well done for getting through another week of balancing learning at home with work and all the other responsibilities that you have. As I've said before, I hope you're patting yourself on the back and acknowledging your efforts. And if you're not, this is as good a time as any. Do it now. This week, I want to touch on some of the topics that were raised in my discussion on Thursday with my friend Jenny, who is another home educator. So if you haven't already done so, I'd really suggest and ask that you watch that recording. It was posted on Thursday afternoon. You'll find it on my Facebook profile. This is another video in the series of interviews and discussions with different people for you to watch at home. So that comes out every Thursday. I'm talking to lots of different people, some really interesting people lined up, and some wonderful contributors so far. So thank you to those people who have already helped. It's very, very cool. Thank you. So Jenny and I talked about approaches to home education, as well as some overall tips, including what to do when things aren't going as planned, and how to focus on the positive. In terms of our approaches to home education, the reason why I like speaking to Jenny is because she unschools. And I don't know if you've heard of that term before, unschooling, unschoolers. It's really quite simple. It just means being completely child-led. So you've probably heard of Montessori and that approach, being child-led. This is taking it a big step further and letting your children determine their interests with freedom to direct their learning and their activities. And it's surprising actually, a lot of people actually do follow this approach. And I recently found out that includes Alanis Morissette, which I thought was quite interesting. While others use this as part of their approach, or as one element of. In Thursday's video, Jenny talks about the way she unschools with her 2 children, including the use of technology in their learning, and letting them focus on their particular interests and passions through games and activities at times which work for them. And that's a big key to unschooling as well. We partly unschool, but we also have some structure, some routine. And I know that sounds like quite a contradiction to mix the two, but it really is about what works for us, and more importantly, what is going to work for you at home. You probably find you're doing a combination as well. So in terms of the way that we approach it using the unschooling and the more routine structure, we really focus on our children's interests to direct their learning. But we do have some routine to our day so the children know what to expect, what's happening. And for us, this is only because one of our children can find change difficult. So we have to be really mindful of that. So that's sort of the routine aspect and what the structure is limited to for us. The way we look at our core subjects and other topics, it's all based around the children's interests. And as you all know, one of those interests is natural history. But increasingly now we're finding world history is very popular as well with both children. So in terms of the unschooling aspect of our approach, the children have a lot of freedom to choose their activities. We have lots of emphasis on play and practical activities, so puzzles, science kits, arts and crafts, model building. We're now also entering the zone of very serious science projects with things like robotics and electronics. And it is times like these when I'm very grateful that my husband is home, because he can help with those kind of things that aren't necessarily my cup of tea or my forte. Where you can, I would encourage you to try this approach, the unschooling aspect. Have faith in your children. You know, as I've said to you before, they're always learning, doesn't matter what they're doing, and that's why we put so much emphasis on play. But giving them the freedom to choose, to have independence and control over their learning, it's so empowering, so empowering. It's made a huge difference to our children, and some of you know that. You know, you've seen our children from before we started home education formally, through the very early start of our journey up until now. And you've seen the change in our children. To me, what's most important is their confidence. You know, they're happy to say, I'd really like to do this, I'm really interested in that. And it brings out their passion in what they want to learn about and what they want to do. And we've ended up doing some really cool things that I would never have imagined that we do. You know, we're mostly, as a bit of a random example, we're mostly vegetarian now. I mean, I am, but the children and my husband are. And that was really brought on by our children and their interest in the environment, which came out of the natural history documentaries they were watching, Blue Planet 2, David Attenborough. But that's really what's driving the children to say, actually, we need to think about the impact we're making and how can we change what we're doing to be better for the environment. So it's been really exciting and really quite surprising the ways in which their interests have led what we do, but also changed some of the things we do as a family as well. During Thursday's discussion, Jenny and I touched on what to do when things aren't quite going to plan. And, you know, that's always something popular that we need to talk about, because we all have those days. We all have those days. And, you know, even in the last week when I've been catching up with friends, some of them are like, you know, how do I stop the kids killing each other? And, you know, despite the fact we've been home educating for years now, we still have those days. Oh my gosh, even those moments. You know, and for me, it's about remembering to take a deep breath and reflect on the really good things about this current situation. You know, it is a bit full on at times. My husband's working from home, I'm working from home, trying to home educate the children, keep the house going. We can't go out as much as we'd like to. We are all in what feels like a small space. But actually, this is a really special time, because Daddy doesn't usually get to be here and be part of our home education. And we won't get that opportunity, I don't think, like we are now again. So that's my positive spin on things when it is going a bit pear-shaped. And my key approach when things start going pear-shaped is to redirect. So either move the children onto another activity, instigate some downtime, or separate the children if they need their own space, or separate me from the children and everyone from each other. And for those of us who are lucky enough to have a partner at home helping with this, it's also really good for, or an opportunity for your partner to step in sometimes and just be a different face and a different approach. And we do that. That really helps me. So another reason that I should be positive about this situation, because Jonathan's home more. So that's really cool. My two are used to spending a lot of time together, as obviously home ed is the norm for us. But that doesn't mean they don't have their moments and their times when we have to pull them apart. I always encourage our children to work things out for themselves. When they're bickering, they're arguing over something, you know, and if I think actually I might have to start and step in now, the first thing I do is say to them, do you need me to get involved? And, you know, 8 or 9 times out of 10, that does the trick. Because I've been very consistent in saying to them, you two need to sort this out for yourselves. If I have to step in, and they know this, they're both going to be really unpopular for causing such a fuss, for taking me away from what I was doing, for having to get Daddy from doing what he was doing. So I would really encourage you to support your children in resolving things between them, obviously without them killing each other, but as much as you can, because I know that that's really difficult for them at times, but it's also really good for them. You know, they're learning even more life skills, and in a way it's brought our two closer together as well, because it's changed the way that they communicate with each other, and it helps them as well start to verbalize their feelings and emotions a bit more. And if I do have to step in, then it's mostly in the way of, you need to talk to each other about what has happened. Don't tell me. But you need to explain to each other why you're unhappy. Take time. And then you need to resolve it. And is that an apology? Is that agreeing to do something differently? You know, giving them options, but really pushing them to sort this out for themselves. We've obviously all been at home now together for some time, and in some ways this time has flown. In others, there are days when, oh my gosh, the tumbleweeds keep going because it takes a while for the time to go past. So I'm hoping that most of you are at a point where things are really coming together in a regular routine. I'm hoping that you're not in the latter category where possibly patience is wearing thin and small non-issues are becoming easy ground for conflict. If it's the latter, or just maybe generally, one suggestion I really have, and it works for us, is sitting down with your children and having a family discussion. If things aren't going to plan, you're having a few conflicts, ask them what's going on. What do they like? What don't they like? Try to get their suggestions for how to fix things, no matter how silly you think it may sound at the time. Because we all like to know that we're being listened to, and children are the same. It could be as simple as them wanting to do some of their activities on their own or a bit differently, or making sure that they have their favourite meal during the week. For a while we were having Friday night pizza night, but fell out of the habit for different reasons, and we hadn't realised that this was actually still bothering our son, because we had explained we're not doing it at the moment because this, that and the other is going on. But when we sat down to talk about other things and said, you know, is anything else bothering you, he brought it up. So we were able to talk about that with him and try and resolve that and sort that out. And it may not seem like a big deal to us, but it's something that's really important to him. So that is important to us, and it means that, you know, we have to address it. The other thing we've done recently, literally in the last week since I spoke to you all last, is introduce a quiet hour each morning. So it's 1 hour where there's no noise. So I encourage the children to read. If they wish to play, they play by themselves and they play quietly. And the reason this came up was because our son wanted time to himself to read, rather than feeling he had to play first thing in the morning or all the time with his younger sister. So by doing this each morning, it means he does get that space. And even though our daughter was initially very opposed to the idea, she's actually really enjoying it too, because a lot of the time this quiet time results in her big brother reading to her, which she loves. And I think because it's taken the pressure off of, I feel like I have to play with her, because he gets to really indulge in his passion without any expectation of being interrupted, he can take that enjoyment and share it with her. And for us, it's just really lovely to see. So that's really, really nice. So if you're sitting down and having a chat about things that are going on within your family, it's also a really good opportunity to let the children know how you feel about what is going on. Especially for those of us with older children, it's a good opportunity to reason with them as well. You know, we like to give the kids the freedom to make their own decisions, but with the reminder that with freedom comes responsibility for their behaviour, especially how that affects others. And that's really important, as well as being a life lesson. I know some of you probably think, oh, she's a bit out there, as usual. and that your children are too young to have these discussions with, honestly, try it. Have faith in them. You know, we've been having these discussions with the kids as long as I can remember, and Jonathan and I agreed that we would always be honest with the kids, and when we do get asked questions, we answer it honestly. Obviously, we cater it to their age and maturity, and sometimes there are questions we can't answer, and we have to explain, actually, that's the kind of question that has to wait until you're a bit older, because then you will understand it. And we've never really had much pushback, even when we've had to say that. I think the fact that we've listened to them and tried to address their concern, I think that in itself has been enough, and it's had a really good response. Obviously talking too much because I'm now drinking lots of tea, but anyway, excuse me. We're really consistent about what needs to be done each day in our house. The children know what tasks need to be done, you know, including exercise, not just jobs. But, you know, that's even before we discuss TV. So I've mentioned this one before, where everything needs to be tidy, etc., before we watch TV. And although it sounds like, yep, I've got this one sorted, there are days when it couldn't be further from the truth. You know, I have to reiterate this time and time again with the children, many times daily. I need it stabbed across my forehead, I think, but anyway. But it just takes consistency and regular repetition to embed these expectations, because the children just want to be clear on what's going on, what's expected, and what they need to do. And a lot of the time, if they're getting frustrated, sometimes it's just that they don't understand. Another important point with things going a bit pear-shaped, siblings trying to kill each other, not getting on, is around exercise. Something we find that really helps with our kids is taking them out for their daily walk as much as we can, and getting them to run around the garden or do their indoor workouts, because the physical exercise helps them let off steam, and it always brings things down a notch. We do the walk virtually every day. You've all seen the photos of what we do. There are days when we don't, and it's not very often, but there are days when, you know, the day before, the kids have just been clearly really tired, and it shows in the way that they're behaving. So we go, okay, they need to sleep in, that's fine. Because we're really conscious that their fatigue levels really impact on their behaviour and their emotions. So that's our way of trying to help them manage their emotions, by helping them with the extra sleep. But we've found that with this extra exercise, continuing to do that consistently, they're sleeping so much better, they're going to bed much easier, we have less of the nonsense in the evening of them giggling and talking till all hours. They are getting into bed and they are sleeping so much better. It's fantastic to see. When things do go wrong, don't be afraid to let your children know how you feel. And Jenny has great perspective on this, so definitely listen to the video on that point. You know, my husband and I tend to do this with our two, and even simple things like, I've asked you to clean up, but you don't seem to be listening, and I'm now starting to feel frustrated. Rather than, you know, just getting really annoyed. You know, and at least then they know how you're feeling and why. When you're just feeling grumpy or tired, hangry, like my husband sometimes, yes, dear. It's really good to let the kids know that your moods has nothing to do with them. You know, sometimes we are just tired and grumpy. It just is what it is. But it's good to tell them that it has nothing to do with them, so they're not confused by the emotions we're showing. And Jenny really goes into this in our discussion on Thursday. It's a really, really good point. Last thing, and then I'll leave you to your Sunday evening. We talked about one of my favourite messages that I keep going on about again and again and again. Look after yourself, please. We have to be strong so that we can look after our children and keep everything going. You've got to have time to yourself. whether it's before everyone else gets up or once everyone's gone to bed, during the day when the children are distracted with an activity or play. Doesn't matter. Find some time for you. And like I said at the beginning, acknowledge what a brilliant job you are doing keeping all of these balls up in the air at once, because it's not easy. I do my run in the afternoon with or without the kids, and even if it's with the children, I still put my headphones in and focus on what I want to achieve, because that just helps me get in the zone. It doesn't mean I can't hear the children. You'd have to be absolutely deaf not to be able to hear them. You know, I still see them, I keep an eye on them, I help manage them, but it helps me focus a little bit on what I'm trying to do. So it gives me that little bit of time. At the end of the day, we're all just trying to do the best we can for our children in this very different time. And we all know that. So just keep remembering, we know that what you're doing comes from a place of love. You are doing what you can for your kids. You're doing the best you can. You're juggling lots and lots of stuff, and you're doing a great job. So please, please, please remember that, and do give yourself time and be kind to yourself. Like we said one in the beginning, weeks ago now. Can't believe it, weeks ago. That is it for now. Have a great week. There will be more tips coming out this week, as well as the continuation of the interview discussion series, so keep an eye out. That's usually on a Thursday. As always, please keep asking questions and letting me know your thoughts. If there's something else you'd like me to talk about, something else that you think would be helpful for you, for others, love hearing your suggestions, so thank you. And thank you all for your support and for listening. On that happy note, have a fantastic week and see you guys soon. Thanks. Bye.